the short intro to what we're doing here is we have a weekly session with one of our executives in residence. It's a chance for this person to share their area of expertise. And then it's an inroad for TAO members to then follow up to learn more, and an opportunity for mentorship and guidance. And so today we have Lynn Sheehan, who's going to talk about finding opportunities and accelerating growth. And Lynn, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Ruthie. So good to be here this morning. I know we have a small audience, but I'm sure that the content will be helpful. One of the things I always like to do with people is to give them things that help them maybe think differently about the problems they're facing, and some tools to help them do that. So today, as we go through this, you'll see a little bit of both. In these sessions, one of the things we've been trying to do is just introduce each of the EIRs and our background. And so just briefly on my background, I focus on growth consulting and business management advising for corporations, large and small, all the way down to entrepreneurship. And I really focus on one thing, and that's transformational revenue growth. It's something that I just find very exciting. It's always fun to try to solve that puzzle of where do you find growth in a market. And there's a lot of satisfaction in seeing the outcome of that and the benefits that it might give your end customer community. My background is mostly in technology, mostly technology development and executive leadership. But really with the strategy and growth focus, I've been very blessed with my employers of letting me have that time to educate myself in a number of areas on this subject. And from that, I've joined, besides my own business, I also work as an advisor for the Chasm Institute, which if any of you have ever run across the book, Crossing the Chasm, will be familiar with that work. And then also Bain & Company, who's one of the top strategy management consulting companies in the world and work globally. And that kind of fed from my global experience. So again, I was very lucky in my career to work for multinational companies, and that gave me a lot of expertise in working internationally for business development and strategy across pretty much the globe. And one of the things, since I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest and had moved around the world, ended up moving back here about 10 years ago, and really enjoying being back. And one of the things that I like to do here is really be supportive of education and entrepreneurship here regionally. And that's part of what got me excited about joining the EIR team at TAO. But I also sit on the Mentor and Analysis board at WSU Vancouver, which works to mentor entrepreneurial companies, and also the OBI bioscience organization as a mentor. And, you know, we talk a lot about our technology backgrounds, but just to finish out my background, I'm very big into social justice, and a lot of the projects I take on are places where we can apply technology to enable social justice. So a pretty broad range of interests.
Lynn, I was wondering, can you press the little button up at the top to present your screen? So up in the, awesome.
Is that better?
Yeah, looks great.
So, you know, I like the fact that we've been doing polls, and so I grabbed a quick poll to have you guys take today. And you know, really just asking you about this changed economy and how you might fit in these categories. You know, companies that I'm both working with and talk to have looked at the different places they've sat in the outcomes from COVID, and they've either been able to take advantage of some higher growth, or their growth has slowed down, or they've seen little or no change. But unfortunately, there's a large group of companies who are facing declining revenue or volume or market share, but also some that doubly, unfortunately, have hit a cliff. So they may have had a complete drop off of revenue, or they're treading water at the moment and aren't sure what's going to happen next. And finally, companies that have closed their doors. So I think we're seeing some of that in the news every day.
Do you want me to launch that poll?
Yeah, if you can share that.
Okay, so here it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. That's good. You know, we're seeing that a lot of the people that are attending are seeing a higher growth during this, which is great. Or slow growth, but you know, we do have people who are sitting on this cliff or have fallen off of it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going then. So is this reality for everyone? So I saw this data come through this week, and I thought it was really pertinent for today. You know, the changes that everyone are facing are real. So you know, these statistics are pretty impactful. You know, 90% of companies out there believe that the COVID crisis will fundamentally change the way they do business. And 85% of them believe it'll have a lasting impact on what their customers' needs and wants are going to be over the next 5 years. So, you know, with that, that's where some of the opportunity is. But the challenge is that a lot of companies don't feel like they have the expertise or resources to pursue growth successfully. And from a leadership perspective, for those of us that are out there trying to lead companies, this is going to be a challenging moment in their career. So, you know, 2/3 of executives seeing this as the most challenging moment. So I'm going to focus a bit today on what we can be doing today to both lead an organization through this, but also look for those opportunities. And leveraging on some work from Bain, you know, there's kind of a well-defined post-pandemic strategy that they suggest people take and invest in. And a lot of people, you know, the first thing they think of is, well, we have to cut. And you know what they profess, and I follow as well, is instead of making uniform cuts across a business, you really need to lead through this. And you need to lead through it by looking at how to allocate your research money, your capital equipment, how you're going to position yourself in the market. And we're going to just walk through these kind of three levels. The first being kind of the operating model and organizational, the second being operational and product development, and the third is how all that combines into a winning strategy. So if I stop here and we do another quick poll, you know, how would you guys score your organization's expertise and resources in these areas? You know, do you feel like you have a well understood operating model? And do you feel you're organized correctly? Operational excellence, how you allocate your research and development spending, products that you might have ready for the marketplace, or even just fundamentally, do you have a post-crisis strategy in place? So maybe we do a quick poll, Ruthie. Okay. Very good. So, you know, kind of middle of the road and higher, so that's good. So I'm going to start with the bottom of this bucket, which is around the operating model. And, you know, one thing that we would look to be doing with any company at the moment is increasing efficiency and the effectiveness of people, processes, and systems. I appreciate I got a lot of great feedback from the other EIRs this week on this topic, and I think Renee, who's on the line, would appreciate this was one that she had reiterated too. You know, this may include directly or indirectly reducing operating costs, and it needs to be a conscious decision. The other is part of this is you're building the foundation for post-crisis growth. So, you know, if you were to go in and make cuts in the wrong places, that might affect your ability to grow as we come out of the crisis. And then the other piece of this that we'll talk more about is these rapid changes in customer behavior. So based on that, your operating model and your organizational structure may need to shift. In the middle section of this pyramid, we start talking about the operational and commercial excellence. So this is both operational and sales. And so again, you see the same bullet, increasing efficiency and effectiveness of your organization, the processes and the systems. And, now might be the time that you look at some of the projects that you had thought about for increasing the effectiveness, efficiency and effectiveness, whether that be a new CRM tool or some other tool that you just haven't taken the leap on yet. Maybe now's the time to do that and to take advantage of that efficiency. Second part of this is really getting close to your customer. And I saw a lot of people talk about this early on when the crisis first hit. It's really important to be in contact with your customer, understanding their changing needs and the changing needs of their customers, and look for opportunities to support them through that. That could be a new sales model. It could be new product offerings from your company to theirs. And both of you are really just trying to adjust to those rapid changes in customer behavior. The second part of this is innovation. And I often get asked from companies, really should we be spending money on R&D during a downturn or a crisis? And there's a lot of data going back decades that show that companies who invest in innovation during downturns do upwards of 30% better in their capital valuation of their company post-crisis. So the answer is yes, you absolutely should be investing in innovation, but you have to go back and look at what you're investing in, and does that still align with these changes that might be happening in your market and your customers? And identifying new opportunities, part of your innovation team should be looking at new opportunities, and when a crisis occurs, sometimes new opportunities pop up. And it's time for you to kind of act and take advantage of those. And then reevaluating, again, kind of your whole portfolio here to make sure wherever you make investments, whether those be people or money or equipment and building space, that you're allocating that based on a prioritization. The other thing that you have to watch out for is an influx of competitors from different industries. So read an interesting article this week about people making ventilators. It took them years and years to be certified by the FDA to sell ventilators. But because of the crisis, those rules were much easier to navigate, and companies even like GE were able to jump into spaces that they traditionally hadn't been in. And so keeping an eye on your competition during this time is important as part of your innovation plan. To kind of pull this together, I always like to give people some tools that they can play with to kind of look at their organization and how this might all come together in a strategy. And so I've just pulled 3 models together for today. One is called the 3 Horizons model. The other is called the 4 Zones. And the last is called Where to Play and How to Win. So I'm going to just go through these quickly. And then at the end, if people have more questions, we can cover that. And one thing I'll say is that, although our focus right now is around the crisis and the post-crisis, these are frameworks that I use even in normal times. So don't be shy to continue to look at these as you exit this crisis. I'm sure many of you have probably run across the Mckenzie 3 Horizon model. Some of these are very old strategic models, but I just find that their age has not really worn off them. They're very relevant today. The only thing I think about with the 3 Horizons model is that these time horizons have compressed. So as our technology innovation has increased faster and faster, I think these horizons compress quite a bit. And so it's one question for you when you look at this is what are the timelines for my horizons? But backing up to what is a horizon, the horizon 1 in this model is your current business. So that's where you make money today. The horizon 2 is your today's revenue plus growth of tomorrow's product. And then looking out even further, those are your options for future high growth businesses. And one thing companies struggle with is finding a balance in this of how do they invest across all three horizons, because you have to be investing at all times across all three. And I think focusing in on our topic today, which is navigating this crisis and looking for growth, what I would do is if you were to map your programs and efforts to grow your business into those three horizons on whatever timeline you thought before the crisis, now go back and really question that timeline. You know, with regards to your current business, really prioritize what stays, and more importantly, what goes. You know, if you have businesses that are doing really well and others that have fallen off the cliff, it might be time to look at letting those go. And then get very efficient in how you operate today. And that should provide you some resourcing to then look at what is in Horizon 2 and see if there are projects in Horizon 2 that you could quickly accelerate into your current revenue plan. And so that allows you to look at a possibility of a project that's not too far off, that by adding some resources, you could have high likelihood of success. And then again, in the third bucket here, you know, really looking at your long-term growth strategy, you may have a completely new set of assumptions that you need to work through. And so don't be shy. You need to work through those, because it might only keep you on a new track for the future of your market, but also now is a great time to be looking at M&A or partnering with other companies in those sectors. Everyone's in the same boat. They're all trying to figure out how to navigate this and survive and how to grow out of it. And so it's an ideal time to look for those partners. The second model I was going to go through is called the 4 zones. So this was proposed by Jeffrey Moore, kind of originally as part of his writings in Crossing the Chasm, but came out in his book called Zone to Win. And the reason I like to connect these is that this connects to the 3 horizons model. And I'd encourage you, if you want to really understand these zones and how you operate within them, to have a look through. There's plenty of videos on YouTube around this topic. But these zones really start down here in this lower left-hand quadrant called the incubation zone. And that would be equivalent to Horizon 3 in the Mckenzie model. So this is where you're looking for the future growth of your company. Up here in the transformation zone, that's where you're taking new ideas that are in your Horizon 2 and you're preparing them to move into your performance zone, which is Horizon 1. Once products are in Horizon 1 and operating efficiently, you move into the productivity zone, which is where you're really getting more and more efficient about your business. So there's a lot of overlap between these topics and the 3 horizons, but I like to give people different views because one might resonate with your organization better than the other. So just like with the 3 horizons, there's actions that you want to take. And part of it is zoning your organization. So you look at each part of your company and you put it within these different zones on this map. Part of that is that each area has a personality. So the simple one to think of is that your guys who run day-to-day operations, they have a very different personality than your research and development team. And so you can zone your organization and then apply some of the theories that Jeffrey Moore proposed around driving efficiencies. And one of the most important places to start is in your productivity zone. So like in the Mckenzie model, when I talked about looking to be more effective and productive in the current revenue, this is kind of the same thing. And they suggest a few different ways to do that. One is through applying a 6 Sigma type model. The other is what he calls the 6 levers. It's really about doing more with less and leveraging technology and experience and innovation to make that productivity zone very profitable. And reducing the amount of resources that you have to have there. Those resources can then move up into the performance zone, which allows you to accelerate those transformation projects out of the transformation zone into the performance zone. So this is like an engine. And so once you put these in place and start turning the crank, What it means is that you can take prioritized projects out of your incubation zone where you're making those research investments, start getting them ready in the transformation zone to become your next product and your next revenue stream, move those into the performance zone and start to generate the revenue, and then become even more profitable by becoming more effective in the productivity zone. So that engine, once it's in place, has a number of kind of rules and guidelines that help your organization navigate that. The better you learn how to do that, the more you're oiling that engine to be highly efficient. And then the last model I'll throw out to you is more looking at the segment attractiveness that you might want to play in and your relative market share within that segment. And this is kind of where to play and how to win. And if we look at this, it would seem kind of intuitive that if, a segment is not very attractive, so low attractiveness, and you're really not a leader in the market share there, then you should consider divesting. And that's a good example of maybe testing your current products. If you have a current product who during this crisis has really changed its direction on revenue, you might need to start considering divesting on that. And part of the reason to do that is so that you can reinvest in the products that sit in a different location on this matrix. So really you want to be looking at things that move you up and to the right, where you can generate relative market share and it's an attractive segment for growth, given the circumstances of our economy today. So I hope that you found those models useful and that maybe the conversation stimulates some different thinking for you today around both where your company is and where you're headed. And I would just encourage you that if this topic or the other ones that the EIR group have covered in the last months are of interest, please reach out to us. I mean, this is a great asset that you have as a member. And there's a couple of connections here we're showing on the screen where you can connect with us directly and actually schedule time on our calendars. And there's a large group of EIRs that all have different backgrounds and skill sets, and you can read through those on the website. So I think with that, Ruthie, we can open it up to questions if people have some questions.
Yeah, awesome. And this is such a small group. I mean, if folks have questions, just feel free to unmute yourself. You can share your video too. I did just want to point out that I put in the chat a link to a scheduling app called Once Hub. And so that's actually a tool that we use that links up with the calendars of the EIRs on our team. So you can go there to schedule directly with Lynn or other EIRs if you want to have a follow-up. Yeah, any questions, feel free to unmute yourself.
Lynn, this is Jackie Seto. From a standpoint of opportunities to accelerate growth and efficiencies and effectiveness, are there specific things that you recommend to get efficiencies? Like it's obvious that you want to drive efficiencies, but are there specific best practices that you recommend?
Well, I think it definitely depends on the type of product that you produce, but some of the things that you can look at, especially in your current operational area, is things around centralizing activity and trying to standardize processes within your company to reduce overhead, and modularize, which you'd think of modularize as components of a hardware system. But modularize, what that means is that go into your organization and take the pieces that allow a process to work and look at each of them as a module and try to decide, are each of those needed and are they adding value and are they efficient? And some of that comes from like Lean Six Sigma type activities where you're just looking to continually streamline those processes to reduce overhead. And a lot of people, I think, underestimate how much overhead is actually out there in the daily lives of people who are running processes within a company. And those people are usually quite well suited at finding efficiencies if you give them the mandate to go do so. And, that optimization can then lead to maybe an instrumentation, which would be using technology to change their overhead flow, or overhead levels. So, good examples of that, a lot of companies that are producing software for communications and process control have really seen a lot of growth during this, because people are having to learn how to communicate through technology. And, while not all the technology is as useful as we might like it every day, I think by far the contacts I've been speaking with have seen efficiencies through technology during COVID.
Sorry, I was having problems finding my cursor, but yeah, that was very helpful. I especially like the idea of the modularizing the processes.
Thanks, Jackie.
Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. Well, thanks so much for your presentation on this topic, Lynn. And so we do have this recording, and we will make sure that the recording is available for folks to share. We'll put it on our Mobilize platform. And again, I do encourage people to check out the EIRs on our website. And there you'll find a link to the OnceHub scheduling app, where you can schedule one-on-one appointments to learn more from our executives and residents.
That's great. Thank you, Jackie, and thanks for everybody that attended today.
All right. Have a great Tuesday, everyone.
Great. Enjoy the week.
Thanks, Lynn.
Okay. Bye.